What's up, YouTube? Laura Whitmore here, founder of Strategic Test Prep. I am joined by our gold tutor, Puneet, today, who just took the September SAT. What's up, Puneet?
I'm all good. How about you?
Good. I'm just excited to talk to you. I know you had a student right before filming and you have a student right after, so we haven't even been able to connect about the test. So I just can't wait to hear what you have to say. For those of you watching, especially the US students out there, Puneet took the test internationally today, which is why we were able to film so early. But when a test is released, whether it's international or US, the same concepts are tested. There's just slight variations to it. So a lot of what Puneet has to say today will apply to your US test. Puneet, is that okay if I brag about you for a second?
Yes.
I feel like I just want to let everybody know out there, how qualified you are in your credentials. Puneet's been with us for over 1.5 years. She has helped at least 20 students, probably much more, go up over 1,500 in their score. And then she's helped many more students increase their score by at least 100 points. She took the test last year in December, scored a 1550, and she chose on her own to go back in this year to see if she could get higher, which I'm so excited about. So thanks for coming on, Puneet.
I'm just so glad we're doing this.
I know, me too. And before we start, I just want to say to everybody, we are taking new students right now. The one thing that I would say is, it's for the December test. So if you're trying to take the October test, I'm sorry, guys, it's too late. Please do not call us. We have some great self-paced courses, but if you're looking to start prepping for the December test or beyond, then you can always book a consultation from our website, strategictestprep.com. And Puneet's actually teaching a class for the December test that starts at the beginning of November. So if you like what she has to say today, you can work with Puneet directly. All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so my first question is, and I'm dying to know this, what did you think was harder today, the English or the math?
I think it would be the math for me. It's just that, I was just thinking about this before, what did I feel was harder? And I just feel like I've seen those math questions so many times now because most of them were from the question bank. So they were still doable. But if I were to choose between the two, it would still be the math. The English was weirdly easy this time. So yeah.
That's so interesting. I feel like the last test in August, the general consensus was the math was hard. So I was kind of expecting the opposite this time. But do you think maybe it just feels easier, the English, to you because you're an English specialist and you're really, really good at all the rules? Or do you think most kids would feel the same way?
Yes, no, I think there's definitely that bias because for module 2 English, the 11 to 15 category did have a few very tricky questions that even I got stumped about. But then because I've been doing it for such a long time now that it just comes naturally. In fact, there was this one question on the second module of English where I guessed. So that was a shocker for me because it was a graph question, and then I also had to understand the claim, but it was just so scientific that I couldn't understand it at all. And at the end, because of the time constraint, I was like, okay, this is what looks like the best option. I'm just going to go ahead with it. But everything else was very manageable. Yeah.
Got it. Fingers crossed you got that one right.
Exactly.
So was there anything new or different on this test that was surprising to you?
What was interesting for me, at least for the first English module, I'd like to go in order. For the first English module, I just had one transitions question, and I was shocked. There were like 5 or 6 note-taking questions, and I was like, "What's happening here?" And most of them were easy, but the what we've been teaching our students now, like how you have to start reading the notes more carefully because they've started leveling that up. I think that's happening a lot more as we progress towards newer tests. Like on the first module itself, I had a note-taking question where I had to look at the notes. On the second module of English, I had 2 such questions, like number 26, 27. I had to really deep dive into what the notes were talking about to get an understanding of the correct answer there. So that was something very new for me personally. Apart from that, I did notice that both the modules did have like I think, two underlined sentence questions. That was interesting. Usually it's just like one or none. So that frequency was quite a lot. And for the second module, my grammar started from number 30. Usually it does start from number 16, right? So I was like, have they given like more grammar questions and stuff? I don't know. But those were some weird patterns that I saw against the blue book tests for English at least.
I'm all about having more grammar and having the grammar start at
Yes.
number 13. So how many logically completes the text did you have then? Just like one or two?
Yes, I had two of them. I think
Okay.
they really skimmed on like the main idea and the main purpose questions and all of that because I did have two inferences. I think I had two or three command of evidence questions. So that
Mhm.
number was maintained. So I think it was just the part from 5 to 10 that was structured a little differently for me.
So with the, let's talk about the words and context then, because craft and structure, which you just mentioned, they skimped on main purpose and those are craft and structure passages. So I'm wondering, did they have more like words and context questions at the beginning, or did it not feel like that?
No,
Hmm.
it was just like 4 or 5 for both. So that was the conventional pattern there.
What did you think about the vocabulary on this test? Like easy, medium, hard? What was your take?
I think it was medium. There was
Okay.
just this one question on module two. I think it was a problem four, where, there were these two words. Like, I already had a word in mind, just like, we need to. And then when I was looking at the options, I was like, I've seen these two words before, but I'm not so sure about their exact meaning. And then I just made an educated guess there. I tried to frame sentences, and whichever one worked, I picked it. And then the moment I stepped outside, the first thing I did was search those words out and I got it right. So I was like,
All
okay,
right.
yes, I was. But for all the others, I feel like if you know the strategies for words in context questions, you are good. Like
Mhm.
literally none of the other words were such that they were very unique, they were very difficult. One other question did have two difficult words, but I did know them from before, so I think it was okay.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, I can understand what that's like to get to a words and context question and not know. And for me, this is so sad. It was on module one last year on the November. There was two words that I felt like could fit, and I was going back and forth and back and forth, and it was just like debilitating and painful to me to try to figure out what it was. I couldn't believe it on module one. And Puneet, I got a 1590. So to this day, I really think I lost 10 points because of that word and context question on
Oh,
module one. Yeah,
yeah,
it just
that
felt
could be
like both could
possible.
fit. Yeah. Okay, cool. So my next question is, most students, and I know you've heard this because you work with a ton of students every cohort, lament about how the real test is harder than the blue books.
Hmm.
How did you feel about that today? Do you feel like the difficulty level was in line with the blue book practice tests or what?
Hmm. And I was just so happy that my predictions aligned with what I saw on the test because I just keep telling this to my students. And sometimes I feel like they're like, she's just lying. The the first mod, like the English section, that was definitely comparable to Blue Book. Like maybe it could go like a notch higher than that, but nothing more. However, for the math second module, especially like starting problem 15 or 16, I feel like the level was harder as compared to what we see on the Blue Book tests. And I
Mm.
mean, so many of our tutors have gone into the test, and I think they've all kind of said the same thing. Like, I don't know why this happens, but the math there is kind of harder than the math we see on the Blue Books. But I think it's definitely comparable to our math workbook because I've just been working with so many students on our math workbook that I could identify so many problems from whatever we have put in there in the actual test. I literally had the patterns memorized and it just took me like 30 to 45 seconds for some problems. So, yeah.
I know, I love that. That's the one thing that I like about where we're at with the digital SAT. It's 2 years in, more, 2.5, because it rolled out March of 2023 for the international students. I feel like it's starting to show some consistency and
Hmm.
predictability where I know what concepts to teach my students. I know how to teach it to my students because for a while there, it was kind of touch and go. We didn't know what was going to be on the next test, how they were going to test it. But I do want to ask you more about the harder second module towards the end, because what I find is 95% of the questions are either advanced math, primarily with quadratics, or geometry. And, the geometry concepts that they test, it's a kind of a narrow window. For instance, one thing that they'll do is similar triangles. They might throw them inside of a circle, or they might have them inside of a big right triangle, and they're two smaller right triangles. What did the second half of the module, the harder part, look like for you as far as the makeup and the content of the questions?
I completely agree with you. Honestly, the two things that were being tested from question 16 and onwards were advanced math and geometry. I think I remember having just like one geometry question, and the others were really just quadratics. And yeah, honestly, it was just quadratics. And there was, I think, one or maybe just one algebra question in there. But yeah, the geometry question, that was interesting because it was dealing with pyramids, and I have not seen such a question on like the official like college board question bank. I may have just skipped it, but I feel like they have started putting in one of those questions for every single one of these tests, because whenever my students come out of the test, they drop me an email saying, oh, you know what, we had this very weird pyramid question and we didn't know the formulas or something about it. And that's exactly what happened in my test today as well.
Was it regarding slant height? Just curious.
It was like it's the where you had to apply the slant height. You had to apply, like, you had to understand the area of the triangle, and you had to then figure out the height of the pyramid. So it was like so
Yeah.
many concepts just in one go. And if you it was really more about drawing the figure right. And I feel like if for someone
Yes.
who's seeing that question for the first time, answering it in just like 2 or 3 minutes would honestly be impossible. So yeah.
I know. And that's one thing I actually work on with my students now, because anytime there's a prism or a three-dimensional shape and we encounter a problem like that, I teach them how to draw the figure, because there's so many students that have a tough time drawing a shape in 3D, and a pyramid is a tough one. I'm speculating that maybe they like to use pyramids on the test because they probably, when they look at the data and test the p-value of the question, I'm sure more students are getting that wrong. So that's the type of question that could level the playing field and also, smooth out the curve so that some people make it to the top and then others kind of get rolled into that, middle 68%.
I completely agree.
Yeah, that's so interesting though. The thing that I find though is I always like to look at, when I talk to you guys and I sit in on the test, the trends of, okay, what is being tested this test? Because what I find is a lot of the times they'll take a concept, they'll test it on a test, and then it will kind of disappear for a few tests, and then it will resurface. So I can't wait to take November, because I'll be interested to see what geometry concept comes up on that test. And then, if and when the pyramid comes up again, because it feels like sometimes things take a hiatus. So I'm always interested to see how often is it being tested, how high of a probability and chance is it of being tested again, and how soon. So I don't know. I'm so enthralled with how they pick and choose what to put in the test and when. And okay, so that being said, my next question is, were there any math concepts today, just in general, we can just talk generally, that maybe showed up like a lot? Like last time you had mentioned that the exponent problems and exponent rules showed up multiple times on your test in December. Was there anything that you feel like they over tested or tested more than normal?
Honestly, this time I just had like one exponents question, very weird, and nothing other than that. But if I were to really pick a concept, I think it will be quadratics. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's important as well. Like even in their percentages, they do specify that it's going to be one of the most tested concepts. But
Mhm.
other than that, I just feel like it was very holistic this time. Like I saw maybe quite a few like problem solving questions, basically the statistics questions, something I did not see on my last test at all. And most of them were on module 2. Like I think I had 3 or 4 statistic questions, which was kind of unique. So yeah.
That is unique, yeah. So with the quadratics, what I think is so interesting about that is there's so many different ways they can test quadratics. They can do a constants or coefficients problem and ask about the y-intercept. They could give you the zeros, and then you need to find the axis of symmetry. They could put it in factored form, and then you need to be able to recognize what the solutions are. They could give you the vertex and a couple points, and then you can run a regression. So it makes sense to me that there would be so many because there's so many different angles that they can test it on. So I really try to hit on each one of those angles with my students ahead of the test.
Yes, I
Yeah.
completely agree with it. And I feel like all the types that you've mentioned, I got a question like about each one of them except the vertex form. But then I did like my last question dealt with like regression. So I feel like that's still covered there also.
Yeah. How many times do you think you ran a regression today? Just curious.
I think it was like I remember watching JC's video, and I remember how she talked about regression being so prevalent, and I was just so excited to do that on my test as well. But I feel like it was the complete opposite. Like for me, it was just this one question that I just talked about, number 27, where I ran an actual regression. Other than that, there was no such problem today for me. So yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Did you use any reading strategies in particular today that were helpful to you? Like, what were your go-to reading strategies for the reading passages?
I think the first two would definitely be like eliminating three wrongs and then getting to a right. I just felt like I was much more confident with that strategy this time around. And okay, I'm teaching that well to my students. It really works. And then about how, if you need to understand what are the key words in an option choice and if you're able to find their synonyms in the text or not. I
Mhm.
also prioritized the last sentence a lot, even for like the module 2 questions. Although I was reading the entire text, I was maybe highlighting the last sentence more or just paying extra attention to it when looking at all the option choices. And then I also like to look at transitions a lot. Like if in a reading question I spot a transition word, I like to highlight whatever follows, especially if it's like a contrast transition. And I feel like that really helps me with my answer. So yeah.
Nice. Do you have any tips for students that are getting ready to take the October?
I think it's just that they should practice as much as they can, like at this point of time. And I think I said it the last time around also, the College Board question bank is literally the best resource at this point of time, especially those new questions that have been released. There were so many of them that I could identify in my test, be it like maybe the grammar or the math or the reading question patterns as well. So yeah, just practice that as much as possible and watch our prediction videos. They are really on point. I
Yeah.
watched I did not get a chance to see one yesterday. So like while I was on my way to the test center, I was just like watching your prediction video just so I could see how many of them align with what I get on my test. And that was so spot on. Like I think I got most of those questions on my test except just like one or two. So yeah.
That makes me so happy to hear that. I love that. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Based on your performance today and how you felt in the test, estimate your score for me. What do you think you got?
Okay, I last time I was hoping to get like a 1550 plus, and I just landed a 1550 and got disheartened. This time I'm gonna say a high 1500s and just
All
wait
right.
for the score.
You heard it here first, guys. We're looking for a 1560, 1570, 1580. Let's see what happens. Puneet, I know you have a student in a couple of minutes, so let's just do a quick lightning round and then we'll close. Do you hide the clock or show the clock?
Show the clock.
How much scrap paper did you use today?
I think I used all the four sides of it, so the entire thing.
Nice. Do you use a pen or a pencil?
Pen,
iPad, laptop, or Chromebook?
laptop.
What was the percent of time on the math you used Desmos?
I think it will be like 50 or 60% for the first module, and then anywhere around like 40 to 50% on the second module, just because I had those stats question and stuff where I had to solve it myself. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, Puneet, I know you have to run. You've got a student. Guys, everybody out there, thank you so much for watching. please just know that we're here to support you. Keep watching our videos. If you want to work with us, head to our website, strategictestprep.com. And if you don't really feel that great about how the test went today, you can always take October. So don't give up, take another test, and just keep at it. All right, thanks, Puneet, for coming. Bye, guys.